Welcome to the What's Your Deal podcast, where we discuss business acquisitions, investments, management, and exit strategies. I'm your host, Matt Euler. Let's dive in. Welcome back to another episode of What's Your Deal. Today I'm joined with Kevin Mizell, and I'm glad to have him. He's a gentleman that we worked together quite a few years ago, but still enjoy catching up every so often. Our conversations can get a little spicy at times. I think you'll appreciate that about him. But let's dive in. I'll start with his introduction. Kevin served as a Foreign Service construction engineer with the U.S. Department of State Bureau of Overseas Building Operations. Wow. He's had assignments all over the world, including Spain, Ghana, and the Dominican Republic, and Washington, D.C. He's managed over $400 million in construction projects. He's also worked in the private sector on projects such as airports and constructing over 250 homes. He has experience in managing and leading teams ranging from 6 to 1,600 members worldwide. And he left his government job to buy a well-established 50-year-old glass company in 2020, right in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. So I think you'll find his background and story entertaining and his approach to business refreshing. So with that, Kevin, so great to have you here.
Thanks, Matt.
Yes. So one of the things that our audience is interested in is, a lot of them are W-2 workers that want to own a business. A lot of them are business owners that aspire to either sell or buy more, or people who want to invest. And so with your background, and one of the things that when we first met, I enjoyed so much was hearing about your background, because I've never been in corporate America, let alone government America. Was what it was that led you to leave and want to leave the career you had, which is super amazing career, to own a small business.
Yeah. Well, I think I told you, the one thing that I learned in the government was how not to run a business, right?
Right.
So, you work hard, and there's a lot of people that are in the government working hard. There's a lot that aren't, but your reward is the same regardless of how hard you work in the government. And that's kind of the same in corporate America in most cases that I've found. So I looked more for a proportional reward that is proportional to my effort.
I appreciate that.
And that's, I went to a lot of, in the government, they give you lots of training, we're going to train you on this, train on that. Every time I went to those, the people that were the trainers, they'd tell me, hey, why are you here? Like, what are you doing here? I definitely clearly didn't fit the mold in that world. But,
interesting.
But I did it for 9 years, and it was fun. So.
Yeah. Well, some of the stories you shared, and I won't go into too much detail unless you think we should, but some of the details you shared about the projects you were involved with, you had to bite your tongue on how money was spent on occasion and how things were done. And I think I remembered, and we can cut this out if it's a problem after I share the story, but I think I remembered hearing a story about where bulletproof windows were installed in a very important building backwards. Yeah. And so therefore they were not bulletproof from the outside. They were only bulletproof if you were trying to shoot out of the building to protect yourself. And unfortunately, those things happen in construction projects. Is that safe to say?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And more so when you're always hiring the low bidder, right? That's the government's Achilles heel, if you will, that they always hire the low bidder every time.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I had known that, but I forgot about that. So as the person who was responsible for the ultimate outcome, you're dealing with the low bidder who either A, shouldn't even be on the job, or B, is trying to figure out how to improve their bid through change orders. And is that
right.
fair?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah, in my position, the government's very bureaucratic, right? But it was similar in the corporate sector where I was working for general contractors, where you're handed your subcontractor, you're handed your general contractor, and you're supposed to get the job done with them, without the ability to get rid of them or change them in any way, shape, or form. So it's more of it's an interesting role because you're trying to get something out of them, but you have no real influence on them. But yeah, as far as the government side of that, that particular incident was unfortunate. We saw many of those often.
Okay.
The government sometimes did something about them. Sometimes they didn't do things about them, depending on, what the issue was. So in that one, the one they did not.
Wow.
And so obviously we aren't going to mention what location that is, but yes, the windows are backwards and they will remain backwards until that building disappears. So.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So that's a location not to be defined.
Not to be defined. Absolutely.
Okay.
And it's interesting. The windows, those particular windows are anywhere from $9,000 to $14,000 a piece.
Wow.
And then the labor to do them, they're so huge that a crane has to move them, each one of them, and so it's an absolute disaster to even put them in the first time, let alone do them twice. So.
Okay. So our government dollars at work, but we won't go there.
Yeah, we always can. It's more fun to go there.
Okay, well.
Let's talk about that for a minute. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
So you decided to leave. Was it always your plan to be self-employed? Did you enter that role knowing that you would ultimately leave? And
that's a great question, Matt. So in my life, my grandfather owned a lumber company, so I kind of grew up working in the local family business for a little bit here and there, and always had the thought of, starting a business myself. I remember my dad in his 40s, he was going through the midlife crisis, and he was going to these franchise seminars, right? Going to the whatever convention center and seeing if he likes this franchise or that franchise. Ultimately, he ended up working for the same company for 53 years. So he didn't change anything. But I met with a number of my friends as I was younger. As I was younger, in my mind, I was like, well, it's easier to start a business when you're younger because you don't have kids, you don't have a wife. If you do, your risk is a lot lower. On the flip side, you have no depth in who you are, right? You have no money to substantiate through through the problems. Mm-hmm. You have no depth of management to know what's important to make a big deal about, what's not. And you can learn that on the fly. But anyway, so I had friends that did start when they were young. One of the friends that started mowing lawns, and then he started a landscaping business, yada, yada. And I would sit with them. Whenever I get really the urge to quit my job, I'd sit with them and talk to them about their employees for 5 minutes is all it took. Yeah. And I was done. I was like, okay, thanks. Good to know. Moving on, right? And so I did fight that for a while. Probably 15 years of my career, right? Of thinking, I want to do my own thing. Always risk was a major factor. I got 3 kids, a wife, and you got to put food on the table every day. It's one thing if I live in a van. It's another thing if we all do, right? And it's kind of a big disappointment. So one of the nice things about you paying my salary for 9 years was that I could leave the government and they actually hold on to my job for 5 years. So that's over now. But had I failed miserably, I could have gone and crawled back to my job and gone and done what I did for a living and put food on my table every day. So that I had that nice cushion or
that's amazing.
backdrop to lean against if I failed miserably in my business. So
I think that's a unique policy for most of corporate America.
Yeah. Any other company that I worked for, the private sector, I could have crawled back. I always left my jobs in a way that I could crawl back and get, food on the table again. But yeah, it would have been a different story. So,
Well, and I'm assuming that the government position was challenging for family too, because you were gone, and I think you had to leave literally for 6 months to make sure that there was a separation, there wasn't any foul play or anything. There was a bit of travel associated with that. Sometimes my family went with me, sometimes they didn't, depending on what country I was in and what the job was. Like a lot of the places, there's some hot, everyone who reads the news knows, Iran, China, Korea, those places are all kind of hot spots that you don't really take your family to, but especially like China and Russia. But the other places your family goes with you and they grow up overseas, which is exciting in some ways, and great. In other ways, it's, a disaster. So they're really happy to be settled in a place, have local sports and play with friends and et cetera. Yeah. It's on that note, the flip side of that is, this is the longest we've lived anywhere in our lives, right? Wow.
And so there's something comforting about, I can just give my 2 weeks notice and move to Ohio if I want to move to Ohio. Whereas here, it's like, I own a business now, so I can't give 2 weeks notice. I can't give a year notice. Like you have to be thinking about an exit strategy always, but the reality is there's no clean exit strategy.
Yeah, you're pretty rooted. Yeah. And the one tidbit, which is humorous about the business you bought, is that I've actually helped people buy and sell it 4 times. Yeah. So it's actually one of the more liquid businesses I've ever worked on.
It's a great business too. Yeah, I appreciate you doing that.
Yes.
So yeah.
So one of the things that was unique when we met and you were looking to buy a business is that I'm always talking about core competency. You know, people having core competency in the business that they buy is a huge credit to minimizing risk. When people get into something they have no clue about, that increases the risk. Your core competency was way beyond anything that was necessary to run this business, especially from a trade perspective, because it's a glass company, which means you install fixed windows and auto glass and all kinds of mirrors and all kinds of glass. And you'd been doing that to a level that was beyond what most could ever imagine in your previous careers.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that when we first met, and I remember I had a deep desire not to do what I'd always done, right? I wanted to change my life, right? That's like, I'm going to buy a business and I'm going to do something completely different, you know? I remember you telling me that, and it was very, very good advice. I appreciate that. And it's, you do what you do and you got to know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, especially as a business owner, people figure it out pretty quick. And I can't speak for other businesses, but I'd be hurting a lot, I think, if I didn't know what I was doing in there. So, especially during COVID. So I want to go back to that because it's such a great point that most of the people who contact me looking for assistance to buy a business want to do something different. And naturally, they usually end up doing something they have a familiarity with, but they resist it. So do you remember and can you share with us some of the other industries that you were contemplating? Sure, yeah. I remember looking at cleaning businesses. I remember looking at a dry cleaning business. What else? A battery business, right?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. My biggest focus, I remember, because you asked me, like, what do you want to do, Kevin? And my biggest focus was, my answer was, I want to make $1 million a year and do work an hour a week, you know? Of course, that's what I want to do, you know? And so I was focusing on things that could be somewhat automated, you know? And that's where I kind of was leaning more away from. I know construction is always pretty reliant on the people there, especially the owner. So, and so that's kind of what I was leaning away from. But yeah, I looked at all kinds of things. I kick tires on pretty much anything you throw at me. So.
Yeah, well, and you had also mentioned about knowing how to pick and choose your battles, and the transaction was challenging, well, to put it mildly. And the reason I'll share without breaching any confidentiality of any kind, but it was just you had and still have a very strong attention to detail and wanting to cross T's and dot I's where appropriate. And the gentleman that you bought the business from was not that way. He had grown up working as an employee of that business, actually sold the business, bought it back, and then sold it to you, which is a whole nother episode. Yep. But you had to work your way through that process.
Yeah, that was challenging in some ways. Looking back, I think the thing that I tell people now is that the Kevin that bought Bennett Glass is not the same Kevin that would buy ABC Glass, right? At that point in my life, I needed money, right? I wasn't independently wealthy, still not independently wealthy, but like I needed income. You know, I had enough to buy a business and survive for a while, but the reality is there was a time clock on that, right? And so I was able to look past some of those things that now, as I've reviewed other businesses, I have looked at other businesses, and I'm a little more of a jerk about it. You know, I'm a little more worried about me than I am about, acquiring the business, because I can be that way. But yeah, I mean, as I talk to other friends that have bought businesses, I mean, you do this all the time, so you would know better than me. But I feel like it's more of a rare case that Jimmy and Johnny have a business transition and their buddies and golf for the rest of their lives together, right? That's not super common. There's always a little bit of in a business transition. Is that fair to say? Or
As far as the percentage, I guess my ideal is that it is where the seller is ready to be done. They know they're ready to be done. They're excited to hand the business off to somebody that they ultimately learn to like because they get to know them through the process, and they care about them being successful, like the buyer does. And so I don't know that I can come up with a percentage, but I've certainly had lots of deals. I don't remember if yours was one of them, but I've certainly had lots of deals where I tell people, listen, if the relationship is not solid, walk away. It's not worth it because it's not a car, it's not a house, it's not a boat.
Right.
You need to rely on this person in a lot of cases moving forward. And I know you were very independent from day one, but I guess that just goes back to your core competency is you can build anything and have built anything.
Right.
And so managing crews for this little niche is not, you can do that in your sleep. And I think that boded really, really well to you not needing to lean on the previous owner a whole lot after closing because you do this stuff in your sleep and at a level way higher than anybody would expect of you here in this. So yeah, I think it's the ideal, doesn't always happen. And in your case, it didn't need to happen because of your core competencies.
Right. I'm glad that that's the ideal, and I'm glad that it happens at times because that's, in my mind, that's the way it should be, right? If I'm ever to part with Bennett Glass, I would hope that I would have it at a point that I've made the money that I need to make off it.
Yeah.
And of course, there's some value still in it, but I'm not looking to get my last ounce out of the sale that and so I want someone else to be just as successful as I was, and to call me a year later and, hey, did you ever try advertising on this radio station or whatever it is, and give them a straight answer, and that to me, that's the way it should be, and I'm glad to hear that there are many out there that is the way. So that's good. It's encouraging as I encourage other friends to give you a call.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and again, life can be tough enough. We don't need to make it harder all on its own. And I had a conversation with some clients not too long ago, and fortunately, the parties were open to my input. And I said, what I'm seeing is this relationship has become confrontational. Why? And the buyer actually said, that's a great question. I guess I just thought it was supposed to be. And I said, I understand that because most people have never done it before.
Right.
But at the end of the day, do you want to be confrontational with the person who can help you solve a huge problem just because they have way more experience, if you ever need them down the road, or create this rift where they're like, I'm paid, he does his own thing or she does their own thing, and it's really great to have that relationship to fall back on, like you described you would like to have when it's time for you to move on. So
yeah.
So that certainly is the ideal, and how I try to design them if at all possible. It doesn't always work, but it's ideal.
Yeah, it's a lot of personalities you're dealing with and a lot of type A personalities. So
that's for sure.
It's hard enough to get other personalities to do it, but let alone a bunch of entrepreneurs that are used to telling everybody else what to do. So
absolutely.
Except for me, of course.
Right. No, you would be the exception.
Present companies.
Right. So what was it like to go from big corporate America government job with all that bureaucracy to small, and I'm going to say small, it's actually a large business in this community, but the hometown business. Yeah. What did you learn, and what did you like about that?
So I am one that, there's definitely certain types of personalities that don't appreciate the weight of a business on them. For me, it's very motivating. Like I appreciate it. I enjoy that I have to make the decision. And if I don't show up to work, like things can fall apart. Like, so for me, it's enjoyable, and it gives me something to strive towards. I would say that if you are thinking about a business, like you honestly need to ask yourself, like, can I handle that pressure of, everything being my decision, from healthcare to sending guys home on a rainy day to how I'm going to, have the business conclude after I'm done with it. So all those things I can talk with people, I can ask them questions, but all those things are on me. So I enjoy that. I enjoy, I fought that a lot in my corporate career and my government career, that I wasn't the decision maker, and that drove me nuts because whatever, whether I just wanted to be the guy driving the boat or like I saw a solution to something that like could be solved and the problem could go away, and that no one wanted to follow that. Whatever the motivation was, probably some of one, some of the other. I enjoy now that I can make those decisions, and I have that opportunity to be challenged on a daily basis. So,
well, and you reap the reward or you pay the consequence, right? So at the end of the day,
that's the idea, right? That's the hope, right?
Right.
Yeah. So
is it day to day? Do you find it not challenging enough, or is it just a breath of fresh air? I know maybe that might be pushing it a little bit, but compared to the corporate walls and the structure and the clearance of this and the clearance of that, I mean.
Yeah. So it's funny. Like I have never been a super, like I did the ASVAB in high school, right? And I remember my friends and family were like, "You're not a military person." Like I've never been. My brother's the exact opposite. He loves the military, whatever. But for me, it's like the rigidity of that has never fit me well.
Okay.
But I do find myself like understanding, like as we're going through trying to like, okay, we're going to have a process for this and a system, and I see how you get there, right? It's like I hear myself and I'm like, oh no, a standard operating procedure. Oh no, right? But there's some value to what corporations can add to a small business. Mm-hmm. There's a reason they got there. It wasn't just because they wanted to be bureaucratic, right?
Right.
But on the other side, I do love the fact that it's just we make decisions, and I can pay Jimmy more than I pay Johnny because I like Jimmy more. Uh-huh. And I don't have to justify it to a human resource department. I don't have to explain that, Jimmy shows up and he cleans the bathroom. So that's right. Why, I don't have to go through any of that, right? It's just a matter of, because I want to. Yeah. And I also find myself struggling with that as well. So everything has its like balance, right? In that like I want to make decisions like a small business owner, but then I find myself like, oh, I probably ought to standardize that because then Jane will find out that I pay Jimmy. So there's reasons for it, but yeah. So the reality is I enjoy it. I enjoy the flexibility of it. I enjoy the challenge of it. It is smooth sailing some days. Other days, I don't want to go to work. I mean, there's just days I go, and then there's like, I mean, this is an interesting town to own a business in, The labor market is fascinating in the trades all across America. Mm-hmm. This town even more so in that people are not easily replaced. And so not that you're always looking to replace someone, but there is nice, some comfort knowing that you can find another person to come in and do the work. When you can't, then you end up being a little beholden to Jimmy's personality or Bobby's behavior or Sally's whatever. So yeah. Not that any of my employees are like that.
No,
but hypothetically
you've read about people like that. Yeah,
sure. In the news,
you heard. Yeah. Well, and if I had to describe you, I would describe you as a very humorous, no nonsense kind of guy. And so you probably have to rein that in a little bit in some of those situations if there's disciplinary action that is needed and you don't have a replacement or it's going to make life miserable for you. That's a factor. Oh yeah, yeah, and that's where some of my experience beforehand had come in to play as well. I mean, I had subcontractors that you just really wanted to fire off of a job, right? But you knew like it's just going to cause more pain if you do. And so it's the same with employees. You have to wait. I mean, I tell my friends, I tell my wife, I do things I don't want to do all day, every day. Like I eat poo sandwiches every day. And it's all in the idea of, what do I want more? It's not selling your soul. It's just what is, it'd be very satisfying to walk in and say, you're all going to do this today or everyone's out, and the next day you got to wake up and you got to pay your mortgage, and if everyone's gone, then you got 10 new people that they're just this, we're all human. Right. So it's the same, different problem, new name, but still problems. So. Well, and I think that's a great point for people that are contemplating leaving a W-2 job and, the grass is always greener no matter what the situation is or very often. And the reality is it still is work, and it's still life, and there's still challenges. And for me personally, I think owning businesses, the challenges are on me. And even if I've got a team around me, I feel them to a greater extent. I'm not going home, right? But yet the wins I get to enjoy those to a much greater extent than I would if it was just a W-2 job, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's very motivating when you can, if I put forth this effort, I may be able to get this reward. Mm-hmm. Very motivating. Sometimes it's hard for your W-2 employees to see the effort and risk that you've taken to get that reward.
That's for sure.
And when you're a W-2 employee, I would also caution anyone that is a W-2 employee, maybe your job's a little easier than you think it is. Mm-hmm. Maybe your role in that company isn't as powerful as you think it is, and maybe you're getting paid pretty well.
Well, that's the grass always being green, right? Is that there's, life is life at the end of the day, and how you spend your time doing it is, we all have a choice about that. Yeah. So,
yep.
So you bought this business during COVID, and COVID's becoming much more in the rearview mirror now, but wow, what a time in this world like none ever before. And that's when you were making this huge transition in your life to a whole new life. And I remember now, I was thinking about this as I was contemplating our conversation today, that there was definite questions about who knows what's coming. Because if for those that don't remember or weren't in business at the time, most of the businesses that I owned and were involved with in one way or another, it was like, are we all out? Like, we're just done? Like, is everything going out of business? And then the government dumped staggering amounts of money into the economy, which made almost every business that I was aware of, certainly with some exceptions, have a banner year. And if I remember correctly, and maybe you can fill us in on this, what you were thinking during that time, because it's the same conversation with business buyers anyway, it was so focused around COVID, is the banner year going to continue? Right. Or is that turn into the next catastrophe, or even the next flavor of COVID, or the next whatever? So can you walk us through some of the thought process there that you were wrestling with when it came to putting a whole bunch of money on the line for what you wanted to do?
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of it's just doing it. I mean, the reality is, like, I had all those thoughts, I had all those worries. I think that, I had to have the guts to do it. And I just had my mind set on buying something. Mm-hmm. And again, I needed income of some sort. But yeah, I think that's part of entrepreneurship, if I'd have to say, is be willing to actually just ignore some of the risk. Because if you can get yourself wound up on the what ifs and the how ifs and the oh my gosh is forever and never do anything. And I remember distinctly probably the first, now that we're talking about it, the first 6 to 7 months, I remember that debt really, really wore on me. Mm-hmm. I was doing some reading at the time, and of a historical religious leader of mine that went through a similar period of debt, and I just, not to get too, personal or whatever, but it took me a while, but I finally reached a peace in it, and just but I remember it was the most debt I'd ever had in my life, Matt. I mean, by far. I came into the business debt free, and hadn't had debt for 5 to 8 years before that, and so not even a mortgage. I mean, because the government gave me housing overseas and, so anyway, yeah, so it was daunting. A couple of things that were helpful for me was making the debt like a fixed debt, right? I always stay away from variable rate anything, because I don't care if it'll go down or not. I know what it is. It's like right. The known, like the more knowns you have, the better. You can always refinance if the market changes or whatever, or pay off some debt or whatever. But if your rates are going up like they were right for 2 years. That gets scary real quick, and that'll make you lose sleep. So yeah, the COVID thing was just kind of chaos for all of us, right? So we were really busy, thankfully, and I'm glad that he chose, the previous owner chose not to touch the COVID money. I don't know what that would have entailed, but I'm just glad that he made that decision. I think we're proud that we made it through COVID without any COVID money. And frankly, some of that's just because everyone was remodeling their houses. And so it was a boom year for any like remodel stuff that we were doing. But the auto glass was slow that year. Bennett Glass has been around for 50 years now.
Yeah.
Been through 4 owners. None of us are super smart. We're all dummies, in our own way, and smart in our own way, right? But Amazon's not putting glass out of business. That's one of the things I looked at. Like, glass has been around since, I don't know, what's the 1200s or something, So it's not changing. They haven't invented see-through walls yet. So, every now and then Amazon tries to ship something glass, and then the people show up at our shop, with a broken piece of glass. Keep shipping it. So yeah, there's those factors that I kind of looked at of like, okay, it cannot be replaced by digital whatever. AI is the current, buzzword, or Amazon then, or whatever. Can I be replaced by that? The employee situation during COVID.
Oh yeah.
None of us want to.
Oh man.
None of us want to remember that. I mean,
yeah.
You can pull up podcasts from that time. You can pull up, blogs and everything, and it's just the whole aura of screw the man and don't give him the stay, quit and stay, and all these like get ways to be at work and get paid but not actually do your job. And it's just, it was a thing, and it was disgusting. I mean, the reality is, I understand I have an employer, mindset. My wife reminds me, that's a very employer thing to say,
Yeah.
Spoken like a true business owner, but the reality is, no matter whether you own a business, you work for somebody or anything, there is honor in working hard. You may not pay the most. You may not be the guy with the Lamborghini. You may not go on as many vacations as the guy that cheats, lies, and steals, or whatever, or you may. But there's, at the end, when my head hits the pillow at night, and people that work hard, when their heads hit the pillow at night, they sleep just fine. And they wake up in the morning, they wash their face, they look in the mirror, and there's nothing to be ashamed of or afraid of. And at the end of the day, we're all going to die. And whatever you believe after this, wherever you're going or whatever, I got to believe that integrity and hard work are worth something. Whether you turn into just a pile of worm food, or whether there's something else after this, it's something worth.
It's the way to do it.
It's the way to do it.
Yeah.
It's the way to do it. So,
well, there's a lot there. So let me pull that apart, because I think there's so many gems in what you shared. One of them that I pick up is that there's a confidence that comes with knowing that you can do what you got to do. And that's the hard work and the ethics and the honesty and integrity. Like, I will just do what I have to do. And when it comes to buying a business, especially when you're up against something like what's COVID going to look like, or what's next year going to look like, or that's a core quality that can bring some comfort and confidence.
Yeah.
I think the other piece for people who are listening that are looking at buying a business, there's a huge difference. And I think you would probably agree that if Bennett had been around, the business you bought had been around for 2 years as opposed to 50, you might have felt different about what the future might hold. But that phone had been ringing for a long time. Yeah. And then the other piece that I hear in your story that I want to point out is that there was some deadline pressure. And the deadline pressure being that you needed to buy a business because you had already resigned from your job, even though you could have gone back to it. That deadline pressure, I talk with clients about it all the time, because if they are able to avoid it. It adds an element of stress, and it's just honestly, once in a while, it'll help people be motivated to do something they might not otherwise. But I've also seen it have people make huge mistakes because they can't go back. And I know you weren't in that situation, but there is an element of like you were feeling some pressure to do something. And fortunately, your core competency was there. You lived, you knew, again, I was not worried about how you would do in the business for 1 second, even though you may have, but I think in the back of your mind, you knew you'd be okay because of all of the things that we pointed out. But that deadline pressure is certainly a factor for sure. And just to fill in people back to the employment aspect, during COVID, the government was paying people to literally stay home. And I had staff who were being paid more to stay home in some of my businesses than they would earn if they showed up. And so, however that came to be, it backfired in a huge way. And every business that I own now and every business owner that I work with is still struggling with the mentality that was created by that move on the government's part.
Absolutely.
And it is a shame.
And it may be for a generation that lasts.
I think you're right, unfortunately.
And it's, and again, not, this isn't a political podcast or anything, but we all have politics in our mind. And I don't have a party or anything, but I did grow a significant disgust for the handout mentality during that, because I just see what it creates. It creates, and not to sound like Mr. Potter from, It's a Wonderful Life, but it ruins a thrifty working class. And the reality is, like, it's, not to be him or a communist or whatever they want to say about that, but the reality is, like, we all need to work. We need the dignity of working.
Yes.
And the guaranteed minimum income is a load of poo. Handouts, free food is a load of poo. No one wants to see a kid suffer. No one wants to see, in this country, no one wants to see anybody suffer. But where you're going to suffer the most is not having the dignity of work.
Yeah. It's very, I think there's a lot there.
Just my little business owner's opinion.
I agree. Well, I know you grew up working hard, and I grew up working for everything I received, and I caught some breaks along the way, but I was telling my son the other day that the longest I had ever worked in one straight shift was 26 hours. And
that's a lot.
It's a lot. And why? Because it had to be done.
Yeah.
And so I did. And, anyway, we could go on and on about that for a long time, probably.
Yeah. But,
yeah.
More people need to go on about it. So, yeah.
There's a foundation there that's very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about aspiring business owners that they're looking at. That they're looking at getting into this. What would you do differently? And I know this a little bit because I know you're looking to scale and grow and roll up some other opportunities. So I know how you evaluate things now differently, but can you walk us through that or pass along some gems of, if you had to do it all over again, what would you do differently this time?
Oh, geez. You can be a Monday morning quarterback on the whole thing. I think one of the things I did right, and it took me a while to do it right, was picking a geographic location. So we were overseas. We know we didn't want to live where we grew up, which is out east. So we tried a couple different times, and I tried to find businesses. Like, I tried to find the location where we were going to end up by finding the business. So I looked at businesses from New York to New Mexico.
Wow.
And all over the place. And the reality is, like, none of those businesses were bad or good per se, but I couldn't get over that. Like, I couldn't get past kicking the tires until we had a geographic location. So I think if you have to like a place and pick to live there for a long time, because you're going to be in business for a while. Differently, I think using the SBA for my loan was spectacular. While I'm not a big government help kind of guy, I appreciate that government loan. I'm not sure there's a lot of normal equity out there that they would lend to you without the backing of the government. There's some really high risk stuff that you can get, but so I enjoyed that. I think I've, this is good for you, right? So I go back and forth about buying a business with a broker, and I have concluded.
Should I get nervous?
Nope. Unpaid advertisement. I have concluded that you're better off working with a broker. Let's be clear what a broker is.
Okay.
A real estate agent with a commercial license is not a business broker. I'm going to be crystal clear in my opinion of that. They can sell the real estate. Someone that has sold businesses that can walk you through, writing your business plan, give you options of financing, and that can sit down, that has enough experience under their belt that can sit down with the seller and educate the seller. Because I have dealt with a ton of uneducated sellers in the last 4 years. and I've gotten nowhere with them.
Wow.
Part of it's just me, because like I said, I'm not the Kevin that bought the Bennett glass. I'm the Kevin that wants to buy ABC or 1, 2, 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
But they won't ever listen to me because I'm the buyer, right? So of course I'm going to tell them that their price is too high, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is a seller needs someone that they can trust, that can educate them on whatever they're doing. So I think going through a broker, while there are some negatives to that, obviously the broker has to make a fee for their services. That costs money. When you're a buyer, you made it very clear to me, and I appreciate your impartiality. However, you made it clear that you represent the seller from the beginning. And I knew that going in. So I'm blind on my side, trusting the goodness of you and whatever I can research on my own. I have read things about you should get your own consultant things. I don't know if I found that super practical. There's not an abundance of business brokers out there. And then if I had brought another business broker to the table, I feel like that would have been a weird situation to have two brokers and a buyer and a seller. So I think going through a broker is a good thing. I think searching, you can find a business that might be for sale through an accountant or through a financial advisor, et cetera, but you almost want to push them to a broker so they can sit down with that broker and the broker can educate them on things that buyers look for, things that they necessarily need to do to make their books look appropriate. So.
Well, those are great points. One of them is, I call it proximity. But part of the reason I started Amped is to try to educate beyond the people that I work with, just because I've been doing it for so long, people who may not have a broker or who just want to become more knowledgeable about how to navigate this safely. And a lot of that's driven by me getting phone calls almost every week by people that are in catastrophe. Like, oh, can you sell my business for me? I just lost $200,000 last year. I haven't made an SBA payment in 7 months. And painful stuff. And a lot of that can be avoided with some simple education. But one of the keys is proximity. And there's a lot of publicity out there online now. You just buy a business wherever it is. It doesn't matter. You can buy one in Chicago and you can live here and you run it absentee and you hire a manager. And I don't see that happening a lot and successfully. And your comment about proximity, finding out where you wanted to be and where you wanted to be with your family long term is just such a core key. And the other piece that I can mirror, I think, because most of my transactions where I'm working as a broker, there is no other broker. But part of my job before the seller ever meets a buyer is to refine the cash flow, make sure it's as accurate as I can based on the information I'm provided, help them understand pricing, help them understand what's going to go on for financing and all of that. And so I appreciate your point that if the broker's doing their job well, then that happens before they ever meet the buyer. But if that isn't going well, are they really going to hear that from the buyer who might be educated in all of that, like you, because you've been through it all? That's probably a big hill to climb.
Well, and I mean, you and I have had this conversation with at least two businesses where I've had to educate their broker, and it's disgusting to me. I'm sorry, but like if I can look at the numbers in an hour and know that they smell like fish, why do you get paid anything? And that's the difference between a broker, a real estate agent that has a commercial license, and a business broker that stands behind. You're not going to go through and audit them, but I'm going to show up at your building if you fudged everything, and I'm going to slap you in the face or whatever, and that's anyway.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of gems there. So I appreciate you sharing your experience. And I also think it's great that your vision is to grow, right? You're ready to do more and you've done great with the business you have. And
you mentioned something that I wanted to point out, because you asked things I would do differently.
Yes.
One mentality that I had, again, because I want to make $1 million and work 1 day a week, was you have to recognize what sphere you're in. I read a lot of books before I did this, and a lot of them are written by these, private equity groups and whatever. There's a sphere when you're above $20 million, gross, that then you're in a world of you're a money person and you're going to hire managers and not be there every day. And, and honestly, I don't think those people go golfing every day, but you're not the business. And so in my mentality, that was where I was headed. I want a business that's automated. That's why I was looking at laundromats or whatever. And you're like, Kevin, stay away from laundromats. I remember you're like, dude. But I was trying to find something automated so I could, do something else. The reality is, like, in my size of businesses that I look at, I had to recognize that I'm going to need to be there. That while you don't want to buy a job, you're buying a job. I remember even the seller, for the few bits of things that I enjoyed that he told me, that was one. He kind of looked at me and he said, if you think this is a business that you're not going to have to be there every day, you're not in the right. You're not looking at my business right. And that was one of the few one of the few gems of information that I appreciated from him. And he was right.
Yeah.
As much as I just recently got done building my house, happy with that.
Great.
But after I started doing it, nights, weekends, and disappearing here and there, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to spend every Friday there. I'm just going to take off every Friday and do there. And it was great for the first 3 weeks. And then I'd come back on Monday and, all the guys went home at 10, because they couldn't do this, they couldn't do that. And it's like, and it was just, they come in, is Kevin here today? And then all of a sudden shenanigans would start. And it's like, it's depressing, but it's human nature, right? And so I realized I can't consistently be away predictably on certain days. I can disappear here and there. I can, surprise them, whatever. But if you're predictably not there, whatever day of the week, they're going to catch on, and the cat's away, the mice will play. It's not just something we say.
Yeah.
So,
well, I appreciate that as well. It's back to the real world, Kevin. I mean, that's it. Right. Yeah. And there's a distinction between Main Street businesses, which is what you own and almost everything I own, Main Street, and, mid-market or larger. And the reality is Main Street, it takes boots on the ground.
Yeah.
And
it does.
So that's a great...
Brace yourself for that.
Yes. That's a great point. So thank you for sharing that. So one last thing, I like to finish all my podcasts that it's a gratitude check, but none of us got there on our own. And can you share a story about somebody who gave you a hand up in your life and helped you get a little bit of an edge when you needed it?
No, I appreciate you asking that. I think every job I've had, every friend I've had, even from the first job that I had coming out of school, I worked for the same company my father had been working for. And my boss, Zippy was his name. He was 5'2", Russian, black guy. And he pulled me aside and said, I don't give a bleep, bleep, bleep who your bleep, bleep dad is. Blah, blah, blah. I'm going to, and he rode me in. But then he took me out and he bought me some tools, said, here's some tools for you. You're a young kid. You don't have your own things. From there, I got a job working as a project manager, put some overtime in, did some extra things. My boss brought me aside, bought me some new tires for my truck.
Wow.
Little things like that to big things. I mean, my school was only $1,200 a semester for college. So it was pretty inexpensive, but my father paid for it. I didn't pay for it. He worked hard so that I could go to college and get out of college without debt. That's huge.
Wow.
To walk out of school, without mounds of debt in my back pocket. People have taken me under their wing in the government even. One of my dearest friends who just retired as ambassador to Cuba, right? He pulled me aside when I got promoted. He said, one piece of advice, personal liability insurance. He said, you're like me, you're going to get sued.
Wow.
So, and so it's just listen to the people around you, hope that they're telling you good things. And if you follow a lot of advice, then you'll be a better person for it most of the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, always had help. That anyone that handouts are bad, hand ups are great.
Oh, I love it.
So,
well, thank you for sharing that. It's so it's such an important thing to me to remember who helped me along the way and then to pay it forward. And I know you feel the same way, but those are powerful examples that you share of just, they may seem like little things to somebody, but to that young man who was ready to start in that job, to get that kind of a hand up at that age in that situation is just, man, it's life altering. Really, it can be.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I
you.
appreciate you joining us today.
It's good to have you. Good to be here with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode as well. It's one of the things I love about the role I'm in now is being able to talk with people where you get to see what's really going on and how they made it to where they are and just drill into it. It's actually one of the things I love about being a broker as well, is that I get to go into businesses and understand what worked and what didn't work. And that's the intent of this podcast. So we will see you on the next episode. And that's a wrap on today's episode. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and got some valuable insights into the world of buying and selling businesses. Want to be a guest on our show? If you have a deal that you'd like to discuss with us or a business story to share, we'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email using the contact information below in the episode notes, and let's make this happen. Never miss an episode. Make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And if you found today's episode helpful, please leave us a review. It helps more people like you find the show.